So it wasn't a specific item that we had. We just had like a vast of different things. And I love the concept because, first of all, we make it, we make it in the premises and everything's fresh. But I can appreciate it because the food is just honest.
Welcome to The Profitable Table, fed by Woolco Foods, the nation's first podcast devoted to the business and lifestyle of the hospitality industry. Now, here's your host, Woolco Foods CEO, Stephen Toberoff.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Profitable Table, fed by Woolco Foods. I'm your host, Stephen Toberoff. And today I'm really happy is the emotion I'm feeling to have the opportunity to interview the guest that I'm interviewing because he's the owner of a restaurant and cafe that I have such fond memories of and was such an important part of my life during my 20s and 30s. And I'm really happy to have this interview. So without further ado, let me introduce my guest. It's Danny Romero, who's the owner of Bonsignour Cafe in New York City in the West Village. Danny, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So for people who live in New York City and live in Greenwich Village and the West Village, East Village, you know Bonsignour. It's been an institution forever. But for people that are in a listening audience that have not been there, can you sort of give us the background about Bonsignour and also about yourself, Danny, and how you got involved and became the owner of Bonsignour?
Of course. So the Bonsignour Cafe was established, it's on Jane Street and 8th Avenue, actually, but it was established in 92 by a very good friend of mine. His name is Philippe Bonsignour. He's from the French Culinary School, and he was also a young guy when he took over from an establishment called Priscilla's. Priscilla had a cheese shop on the location. I believe they had some relationship, like some friendship. They knew each other. At that time, Priscilla wanted to move to Florida, so Philippe took over the location and he made it into Bonsignour, or he established it Bonsignour. His last name is Bonsignour. So from there, he had it for 10 years. In the 90s, and he established in 92, like I said. In the 90s, it was in the West Village on Jane Street. It was very residential. The business was, different from what it is today.
That's for sure. I remember that well, Danny, because I moved back to New York from Chicago in 1993. Although my dad lived on Bleecker Street for many years and our business, Woolco, was on Gansevoort Street. But I remember living in the West Village, right up the block from Jane Street then, and it was a very different time and a different vibe.
Yeah, absolutely. We had the meat packing, which was actually the meat packing at that time, where, Philippe will go and buy the meat from just a couple blocks from where we are. Produce, we have Manhattan Fruit Exchange still there. At that time, we had Woolco with all our ingredients and stuff like that. So he had it for 10 years, and after 10 years, soon after 9/11 happened, actually, him and his wife and the kid, they wanted to move back to France. At that time, I had been working for him when I was going to college. I was in my mid-20s. And he asked me if I wanted to take it over. And I love the establishment, especially the neighborhood where it was located. And, ever since I was young, I was working in cafes and stuff like that. So I knew a little bit of the business, actually more customer service rather than the business side. I took it over, and from there, since 2002, I've been the owner of Bonsignour Cafe, and I'm so happy to been working there and running the shop, especially where it is. It's a different environment that we established, very neighborhood-like, provides to the community, and the relationship with the customer, I couldn't be happier. They're very supportive throughout all this time.
Of course, it really is such a special place, and there were so many aspects, and there are so many aspects in my mind that make Bonsignour really unique and special. One of many, and it sort of would lead me to some areas I wanted to get into with you, Danny, which is what was so cool about Bonsignour back in the 90s is you would go in there and you could go into Bonsignour and get a nice coffee or pastry, or you could get phenomenal sandwiches, or you could get really well-prepared meals that had chicken and salmon and everything. But what was really cool and where you guys were ahead of your time is it was really geared for takeout from the very beginning because there was not an indoor thing to it. You had that great bench out front and you could sit in the park across the street. But from its beginning, it was like that. And I think now, with everything that's gone on, that's probably worked to your advantage tremendously, right?
Yeah, knock on wood, I would say. The good thing of what we were established, like you said, as a takeout from the very beginning. Throughout all this time, we only had like 3 little tables in the front. The premise is very small. Although since Philippe established it, we make everything from scratch. That we make about 90%, I would say, of everything that we sell in the premises. We make our own dressings, our own mayonnaise. We roast our own turkey for sandwiches. Everything that we prepare there and we sell, we do it from scratch. And I think that's what separates us a little bit from the rest. We have a unique taste. It just when you are ordering a ham and cheese sandwich, it has this unique taste.
You're so right. Everything that you guys do, because I remember back then, like I was saying, everything that you offer is of such a high quality. And another thing that you guys do so exceptionally well and is unique is, like you said, the store itself has a very small footprint, but you have a very vast array of options, and each one is so amazing. Like a lot of times you won't see that level of selection with a place that has that size footprint. And if you do, there's a certain number of segments on the menu that just are not at the same level of everything. Actually, this explains it to me because that's really incredible, the amount of product that you're baking from scratch. I mean, it really shows up at the end product.
Yeah, we make everything from all kinds of soup to coq au vin to stews to chili to lasagna, fried chicken to like healthy salads and stuff like that. Our menu changes on a daily basis, and how established is like we kind of like had a relationship from the beginning with customers, like what they want and what they like. It's a funny way because people in the beginning, they used to call us like the neighborhood refrigerator, where they used to come in and see what was available.
Totally. I can relate to that.
Right. So it wasn't a specific item that we had. We just had like a vast of different things. And I love the concept because, first of all, we make it, we make it in the premises and everything's fresh. But I can appreciate it because the food is just honest and nothing complicated, nothing from, we make a chili, what a chili should taste like to our preferred or best to our knowledge, or we make some empanadas that are tradition, what empanadas should taste like, and on and on and on. Just for me, it's just basically it's just like the comfort of honest food, what Bonsignour really represents.
That's so well put, and it's so true. I mean, I remember some of my favorite dishes were the salmon and the chicken, and the food was amazing. And it's like you said, it was good, honest food. It didn't have to be over the top. It was just excellent in the execution. A question I have, I was just thinking about it as I was listening to you, is the following. When I lived there in the 90s, I would always go and pick up at Bonsignour. So I really got to experience what you described because there was always new offerings that were there and available. But my question, Danny, is to what extent now, what percentage of your business, if any, is through delivery? Is the majority of it still pickup? Do you use the third-party deliveries? What's changed, if anything, with respect to those dynamics?
The majority is takeouts. Customers come in and they see what they want. And, the good thing is that we're fast. I would say that, for the quality of food that customers come in and buy, we're pretty fast for what but the majority, it's like 90% of our sales or more, actually, it's takeout. When customers come in and we have to attend them and they choose what they want. Online, we do Postman, we do all those accounts, delivery service, but they haven't picked up as much as anybody would think.
It's interesting because, what's so cool about this as I'm listening to you, it's like you guys have been executing at this level since the 90s, right? As we talked about. And yet the way you're running your business and the business itself and the way you have it designed, Danny, is probably more on trend and more future forward than anything out there, because I've been talking a lot in other podcast interviews, and I've written about this as well, that takeout is going to be a bigger and bigger dynamic in dining, particularly in cities. And that's been your core business from the beginning. It really, it circles back to something else, which I have a question on, which is, What percentage of your customers, because you've been a staple of the community, would you say are regulars versus people who may be in the village for one reason or another and they come in because somebody's recommended that they have to try it? You know what I'm saying? Like through word of mouth.
Exactly. That's another thing. I'm very old fashioned, I would say, when it comes to like promoting the cafe. I really always have admired the word of mouth. Like you tell a friend that you got to try this place over there in a humble kind of way. I've never been like such a business driven person. I more consider myself more of a relationship. Like to me, Bonsignour is more of a environment where for the community where we can get to know each other. And I can provide something good for people to buy and eat. Now, your question was our clientele. I mean, we're still in business. A lot has to do with the community. The people are very supportive during this time, and they make time to come and walk over to the cafe and choose what they want. Word of mouth keeps growing little by little. We are established on a residential area, so we don't have that much. We never had like foot traffic from tours or anything like that. We had offices that have moved out. There was a lot of fashion offices around here, and we rely on the community and on regular customer that we have established at the time, and they come through.
Now, let me ask you, because I lived there from 93 till probably 98 or so, how has the neighborhood changed at all? Because I know New York has changed a lot. Do you find that you still have the same regulars you've had? You'd mentioned the office space. What changes have you seen in terms of just the area itself, or would you say that it's been relatively constant, notwithstanding what's gone on around it?
Yeah, it's a good question, Stephen. What's sad, how it was changing. At one time, it was well established. Everything was booming. I think I would say back in 2007, 6, around there. Everything was pretty much established. So you got the regulars that would know Bonsignour that have been living here for like a few years. But at one time, the real estate value went so high. It was so expensive to rent an apartment. Yeah. So what I noticed is that people actually move in and they have to move out after 1 year or 2 years. And so it takes time for you to establish a new customers. Someone that moved in, I will say, they find Bonsignour and they tell me, "Oh, first time here," and I'm like, "Oh, you're new in the neighborhood," and they're like, "No, I've been here for like 6-7 months." So we begin to establish the new clientele, but soon as their lease expires, they find themselves not renewing. So it's like a rotation. They have to move out to different area, different place where it's affordable. And so that was a struggle throughout the years, getting customers established. The moment I felt like we established clientele, they will move out and stuff like that. So
that's an interesting observation. I didn't mean to interrupt you because it's true. The West Village used to be a place where I knew all of my neighbors on Horatio Street and everybody stayed there for years.
Yeah, there was this vibe where it was very neighborly, where you could get to know your neighbors, not even the same building, different buildings around the block and stuff like that. And part of that was a lot of cafes that we had around, a lot of establishments like that where people felt that they can go in there and just pick up any kind of conversation. It was very sweet in that way.
No question about it. Like when I think about, because like I told you, my dad lived on Bleecker Street. He moved to Bleecker Street like in 85. And there were a handful, like if anybody really wants to get the flavor of what the authentic West Village was from that time, there was Bonsignour, which thank God is still such an impact in the neighborhood. I remember Lilac Chocolates. I remember Sevilla, the restaurant. And you're right. The West Village as a neighborhood was something really special and unique to New York City, unlike anywhere else I've lived in New York or elsewhere. So now with more and more people, they come in, they stay for less of a time. I guess that just creates a certain, new set of challenges, right?
Yeah, it certainly does. I mean, we still have regular customers, but the sad thing is just we are uncertain how long they're going to be in the neighborhood. We have lost a lot of great, really nice, sweet people, and it's unfortunate that the real estate rent here is so expensive and people have to move and they're sad because they really love the neighborhood. Still, it has that charm.
It does. What I love about what you were saying is you're really clear on what it is that you enjoy and what your core value is owning Bonsignour, which is you want to be a part of the community. Because as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking that the Museum of Illusions opened up relatively close to you. And you have all of those shops that didn't exist in Gansevoort Street that exist there now. And the neighborhood has gotten so dynamic, but you've made the decision that, you know what, it's not what I'm about to try to market to those different potential streams of revenue. I'm going to stay focused on what this cafe is founded on, which is the community, and build from there, which I think is such an amazing message for people to hear, because there's very, very few restaurants that have the ability and just take a stand on that, you know? Like, do you ever find people coming in from, say, the museum or the fact that there is more tourist attractions? Like, when I lived in the West Village, it was not a tourist destination. And I believe that's changed quite a bit with all that's gone on in the meatpacking and the museum and stuff. Do you find tourists, even though you'd said you're in a residential area, and I get that, but do you ever see that at all, or they just don't make it around that corner?
We have seen it, but it's not as current that people in the neighborhood would expect. For example, when the Whitney Museum was about to open, actually some people tell me, oh my God, Danny, you has to double on your staff because the Whitney is going to open and the Highland and all the stuff, you're going to get slammed, It almost felt like they were telling me like the regulars were going to get pushed to the side because I had to attend all these new walkthroughs, But it was nothing like that. It was, I think, when you get tourists and they decide to do a tourist thing when it comes to when people will go to the Whitney Museum from other parts of the world, they will go to places like, around the meatpacking. Like they have all these restaurants and places like expensive stuff. And from there, they will walk straight to Bleecker Street to all those little shops. So we were like on the way, but they will certainly eat next to the museum or in the museum, around there. We had the Gansevoort Market that opened also. So we never picked up on a volume of tourists. Like I said, we don't stand out as a place where people from visual, right? I'm talking from visual. You have to know Bonsignour, and it's almost like you have to know through like word of mouth. We don't.
Yeah, it's a gem like that. Now, let me ask you a question. One of your neighbors, who I also interviewed on an earlier podcast in a place that I used to go to a lot, is Tavern on Jane. And during the summer, there was that beautiful outdoor setup that you guys have there. Do you feel that that's something, because I know that they're going to allow that in the coming months and going forward, do you feel that that outdoor seating was something that was really beneficial? Because as you'd said before, prior to that, like when I would get food from Bonsignour, it was always takeout. Sometimes I might sit on the bench or go to the park, or you'd go home. Did you find that that was an added benefit for your customers to actually have a nice sort of area where they could sit that was sort of dedicated to your cafe?
Oh, for sure. It's so charming where people get to sit outside. Very European type, we heard this over and over. Yes, the benefits. I mean, especially when, first of all, we didn't have too much seatings inside, no? So our customers will sit outside on the benches outside, enjoy the outdoors. You just watch people walk by and stuff like that. The outdoor dining that Michael from Tavern next door, he put there, it just added to us. Michael and I, we have a very close relationship throughout the years. Whatever he needs or I need, we help each other out. It's that type of neighborhood gesture. Because we're open in the morning from 8 to 6 p.m., we have this agreement that customers can use it while we're open, and his customers will use it. So we both share the seatings outside, and customers knew that was something that we were both providing, for Tavern Jane and I, for people to sit outside. Meaning that you don't have to sit down and eat at Tavern or have anything to drink. You know what I mean? Like beer or any alcohol. You didn't need to consume that. You could just very well go to Bonsignour Cafe and order a salad, a sandwich, and just sit outside and enjoy the outdoors.
It was so charming, and there's probably no better neighborhood to just sit outside and chill and people watch. Mm-hmm. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about your menu, because it really is amazing, and I know that you vary it. What are the main drivers that determine what new items you offer? Is it really that dialed in where you just get enough feedback from your customers that you'll create the dish? Or is it something that you'll see or someone on your staff? How do you determine these new items? Because you are always adding tons of new offerings and it's a very fluid menu. What's the decision process that goes into what items you select and where you get the input from?
We have a lot of diversity on our menu on the back house. And in the front, we pretty much go seasonal. What's in season? Like we'll do like stews, chicken stews, and chilies and hot dishes more in the winter, with different type of soups and stuff like that. We always provide like healthy salads and combinations and stuff like that. But throughout the year, when we are taking care of customers, they also feel free to give us feedback, or they either was a salad that they enjoy one day and they haven't seen it, so they'll freely speak to us. Oh, remember that salad that I had the other day? When can you make it again? Stuff like that. So that's how we kind of make a decision when what to bring in and what to move out. Our display, I remind you, our displays are small. It's not the food doesn't go around in all these areas, just particular area where it's small and we can only fit X amount of time. So we make our decision based on what's in season, and what customers are pretty much craving.
Now, one of the things that I had talked to Mike about, and that I know from having run Woolco in the meatpacking district before we moved to Jersey City, is the importance of community. And I know Mike had spoken about that a lot. I know you've spoken. Can you talk to me a little bit about what that means for just, and this is really something for people that are looking to start a business, because a lot of the people who listen to this podcast, Danny, are people who aspire to open up their own restaurant or cafe. And so they're listening to you and they're saying, okay, here's a guy that's been open since 93. He's not doing marketing outreach, really dialed in, focused on the consumers that are living there, the community and all that. How does one go about building that relationship with the community? Is there anything that you do proactively, or is it just simply a byproduct of you being the authentic, welcoming business you are, and the community evolves around that?
I think the face front has a lot to do with it. Like people get to know your personality, how you speak to them and stuff like that. And I guess staff that you hire reflect on that a lot. How you treat your staff, they're gonna treat your customers. And I remember, because I was, when I was in college, I was working for people that I really admire, people that not so much. I always try to treat my staff with all the respect and stuff like that. So it reflects on your business, how they taking care of your customers.
It's such an important point, and so many people that I've interviewed and spoken with say the same thing, which it's so true. If you're in a service business like I am as well, you have to treat your employees and the people that work with you, your staff, as good as, if not better than, your customers. Because if you don't do that, then how can you expect your customers to be treated in the way that you want, right?
Exactly.
And then second of all, I find that if you're going to be a leader of an organization, you have to have credibility. And you can't preach that you want to be something to your customers and then not behave that way with the people with whom you're working. So I couldn't agree with you more. So let me ask you this question, because it's something I've thought about and discussed earlier. You had said that your focus, if I heard you correctly, Danny, you had said your focus was really more about, or not more about, but like you were really into the customer-facing aspect of the business, right?
Yes.
So your food is amazing and everything about it is amazing. But in your opinion, what do you think is your single biggest advantage? Is it the relationship you have with the customers, or is it the food? Because a lot of people will go to a restaurant and they can have the most amazing food in the world, but if they're not treated properly by the waiter or the host or whomever, they're not coming back. And conversely, if you give somebody a bad meal or a bad cocktail, but you handle it. So how would you rank that in terms of importance and emphasis in terms of what you do in terms of training?
Yeah, it's a good question. It has to be blended both in. I'm someone that really appreciates every sale or customer that comes in, and nothing makes me happy when they come back and they give me a good review about what they had, and it was, so satisfying to them. For me, it's like I think I told you before, I wasn't business driven. I wasn't, with the prices and stuff. It's a learning experience from the beginning. But when it came to establishing customers and making sure that they actually pay for what they wanted, what's very important to me. You have different dynamics. You want your customers to come in and have a pleasant experience, even if they spend $2 to like $40 on a meal or something like that. Like every single walk-in should have a pleasant experience. You don't want them to come in and not just the experience, but also the what they consume. So when I'm gonna do this really quick. So when I'm training somebody, and we make cappuccinos, lattes, and all this stuff, all those hot drinks, and I hire a lot of people that don't have experience making coffees and stuff like that. But coffee can be very particular with some of the customers. So if you walk in, Steve, and you want to treat yourself for let's say a cappuccino, right? And you're gonna pay $3 for a cappuccino. Right? It was a nice experience and everything like that. And when you consume it, you really enjoyed spending those $3 at the establishment. Now comes the next day. The next day, you're not sure. You're like, oh, should I have a cappuccino? But if you come the next day and you went inside and you spent those $3 on a cappuccino, and it wasn't to your taste. It wasn't like the consistency that was, the last experience, or the person taking care of you, was kind of dry, wasn't friendly, and anything like that. So your experience wasn't as good. Now, customers can be very forgiving, but if it's repeats and stuff like that, it just doesn't help your business.
So true.
I strive a lot in consistency and friendliness. So what I'm trying to say is that, let's say the cappuccino that you spent $3 and the first time was good, but if you come back again and the staff is very friendly stuff, you may be a little forgiven because you had a good experience. But if you go back and the people serve you just couldn't care how the vibe and stuff like that, and then you spent $3 and on top of that the cappuccino wasn't good. So now you're like, oh, I'm not gonna go back there because it's first of all, my experience wasn't good. Second of all, the cappuccino doesn't taste good. So you have to keep in mind all these aspects. For every customer walks in, you're welcoming them. And you do your best to make sure, you're.
And I would say this, and I would imagine this, like the interaction that you're having with the customers and what's been going on for the past several months, that dynamic has never been more important, because think about it, like there's no movies, there's no theater, people are in a different type of dynamic. So that experience of going and picking up at Bonsignour is that much more precious. You know what I'm saying?
Correct. Yeah. In that area, it's so important to appreciate every customer, and everybody's going through their own thing. Everybody's going through, and we all gone through hard times and work and business and family and stuff like that. So it's very important for people to be honest, and if you're taking care of a customer, you should be definitely attentive, and the customer, can appreciate the experience.
I just want to say, first off, Danny, thank you very much for this time. And I just want to let people know that Bonsignour is located at 35 Jane Street in New York. And if you're ever in the West Village, you absolutely have to stop by. It is really a special, special place that you have. And I told you, Danny, I have so many fond memories, and it's one, I really miss living in the West Village because there's nowhere like it, man. You know what I'm saying? Just that whole thing. And so for people that want to know what it really is to live in New York and be in New York, when you're walking around the West Village and you're hanging out, go where the locals go. I mean, it's an amazing place, and this has been such a joy for me to re-engage, Danny. So I really appreciate you taking the time, man, to speak with me.
Of course, yeah. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Danny. Have a great, great day. That was a really cool interview. It was amazing to listen to an owner such as Danny, who is really just so hyper-focused in on the experience of the regulars and the community. We're at a moment in time now where so much that's going on in our business is based upon utilizing every digital tool out there to market, to use data to try to understand consumer patterns and then engage with them in a manner that's going to maximize check sizes, and to just have the whole focus be upon money and a mercantilistic aspect. And here you have a cafe that's wildly successful, been in business since the early 90s. And all they're doing is just laser beam focused on the community, on quality, and on authenticity. And I think that's such a powerful lesson for anyone that's thinking about getting into the hospitality industry, because you can see how valuable and how powerful those concepts are. And it's amazing that this concept of just really focusing on pickup only, now the whole world is revolving towards them, or a big chunk of it anyway. So very, very cool. I really appreciate Danny for doing it. And I appreciate all of you for listening. If you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe. Would love it if you would do that. Would really appreciate it if you would write a review as well. I always enjoy hearing from people. So tell me what you think about this interview. Email me at steven@woolcofoods.com, or you can DM me at Instagram. Really appreciate your comments and your thoughts. And most importantly, everybody, have an awesome, awesome day.
Thank you for listening to The Profitable Table, fed by Woolco Foods. Please be sure to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast app. And to learn more about Woolco Foods or Steven Toberoff, please visit us at woolcofoods.net.